So I guess that video I made reviewing this thing raised a couple hackles. I guess a guy who is going to try and make a career out of YouTube would probably want to avoid this sort of content from now on. So anyway, here's something much worse. This is a super monkey. I'm shitting you not. This is a super monkey. It used to have a little monkey head. It was really goofy looking. But seems the sands of time took care of that. That or it offended somebody too much on a job site and they wanted it gone. I don't know. It's a JC60. Apparently that means it has 60 horsepower. Oh, where to start with this? It's so amazing. First things first, this isn't mine. This is actually my dad's. It's a 07 model, I think. He bought it brand new. He found some guy in Toronto who was importing Chinese equipment, and he got it through that guy. So I don't know what the process was back then, but this is what he ended up with. A JC60 Super Monkey. It's a Tianluyu modern agricultural equipment Super Monkey. You can still buy these things, frighteningly enough. I was just looking on the Alibaba. You can buy this exact friggin' machine. I don't even know if it costs much more. I think, what did my dad pay? 16 grand, I think, is what he paid for this thing landed. It came with 2 buckets. They're both the same size, but the other one has teeth on it. And he got a set of pallet forks that he ended up having to modify because the tines were too short. It has auxiliary hydraulics. We've never used them. I think they're supposed to flow somewhere in the... Well, it's like a regular low flow skid steer setup. I don't think high flow would have even been an option on this thing. Where to start? Let's start with the controls, because we're looking right at them and you're probably wondering what the hell's going on. Everything about this is mechanical. So this right here, it's not pilot controls, it's fully... Check that out. This sucker is built like a Russian tank. It is just mean. This bar right here, you can tell there is no wiring, nothing. So this bar actually does nothing. This bar makes you feel safe, and that's all it does. It doesn't deactivate the hydraulics. You got a handbrake. Now, she's seized, as will happen over what are we looking at? How old is this thing? 2007? We're looking at 14 years. It's been sitting outside for all that time. Check that out. This is how you activate the auxiliaries, supposedly. Like I say, we haven't tried it. Kind of seems like not a bad idea, to be honest with you, because if you're trying to run a brush hog or something, you don't really want to have your thumb on the trigger the whole time. This right here is your throttle and shut off. So this one's throttled, and this one you go all the way down and that shuts the engine off. So it's just a, instead of an electric solenoid, it's just a straight manual shut off. May as well hop in this puppy. There's the dashboard of champions. So these gauges would be nice if they worked. They don't. Although, well, the hour meter works, kind of. The key is really finicky. Like you can see, it's on right now, and it'll run. But you see, it's while you're running it, all of a sudden, sometimes the key will just lose connection, and then that hour meter will stop working. Like I said, the gauges, they don't work. What else doesn't work? It did not come with a heater, because my dad thought that people would want to sit in it too long if it had one. The alternator light and the engine oil pressure light do actually work. The lights, well, I mean, that's for the old, you know, the turny thing, the beacon on top. I ripped that off on some trees. Whoopsie. So that doesn't work. This does actually work. There's a light on the back that hasn't rusted off yet, so that still works. And preheat indicator. See, oh, it lights up, but the I'll show you in a second. It has a grid heater, and the wires just melted right out of it, so it doesn't actually do anything. So the one to your left, which would be on your right if you were sitting in it, that one controls the arms and pulling it up. So up, down. Up actually pushes it down, and then down moves it up. And then it's the same thing on this side. This is your bucket. Up is down, down is up. I don't know if that's weird or not. It's been a while. I started running skid steers on the old Bobcats with foot controls. So hand controls I haven't done so much other than this thing. I ran a Whacker Newson a little while ago. It clearly had full electric, which is that's kind of hit and miss anyways. It's hard to make that feel right. But I'm pretty sure was it the bucket that was backwards? It made me look like a real fool anyways. I kept trying to run it like this thing, and everything except that one control was backward. I don't know if the Whacker Newson is the weird one or if the Super Monkey is. Typical old school bucket change setup. Missing some parts already. This thing jams up pretty easily, but that's not unique to Chinese stuff. There's supposed to be a pin here that holds these things together, but that pin is broken. Still, seems to stay in. It has side view mirrors that broke randomly and never really stayed put. I put some stay put glue on them to hopefully solve that problem. It had lights. They fell off. They actually rusted out and fell off. But they did work. This stuff here. This stuff my pop added. It gets ornery if you try and take it out too. So this is, I guess, the auto level setup. It does come with it. It works. I don't really know what else to say about it. I mean, it doesn't work perfectly, but it works. There's that one backlight that actually works. That sexy piece of brass right there is a recent addition. It came with the chintziest, this is the hydraulic oil level, it came with the chintziest little plastic doohickey, like for a friggin' air compressor or something. And it leaked and then it broke. Speaking of, this is the side where you put hydraulic fluid in. It's very good at trapping junk in here. And this side is fuel. The tanks are basically the same size. I have no idea how much they take, but they're basically the same thing. 12 kilometers per hour, supposedly. Speedy she isn't. It's CE. Certified, That piece of plexi right there was an addition of Pops as well. Before that, the rain just sat in your lap. So with the lid tilted up, we can get into the belly of the beast. I'd love to pull this stuff out and show you all the stuff down there, but I just don't feel like it. Sorry guys. But you can get an idea of what's going on in here. This is supposedly an Italian pump. There we go, let's zoom in. What does that say? Bondi and Pavesi. That's an actual Italian company, but these pumps are not made in Italy. They are made in China. I don't know quite what's going on with these, but check this out. You move the lever, and you move the valve in or the spool in the pump. So it's direct. Same thing with this side. This one goes down here. So it takes some arm wrestling to move her around all day, which is okay. It's probably good for you. Get a bit of exercise while you're running equipment. These final drives here, I don't know what the heck they are. I haven't found any real labels on them, but you know, it almost looks like they have brake units on the back. They just don't do anything, I guess. Right there, that's a brake drum, and that is for that handbrake, which is seized up. Maybe one day I'll get that thing working again. But basically the way it is, when you're just sitting there and you're not holding the levers, there's nothing actually stopping this thing from rolling. So that's why it has a handbrake, because it doesn't have any hydraulic braking. Everything is totally manual, and the same thing with the levers in here. You can kind of see that moving. There's some valves like you'd get at Princess Auto or Harbor Freight, and that's just activating that. Like, this is straight up from the 1970s kind of hydraulics. I had to readjust these actually. When I brought this thing up here this year, this thing would creep forward when you let go of the levers. It was hilarious. Somebody always had to be sitting in here pulling back on the levers so that the thing didn't run into something. It kind of sits, like if you put it on level ground, it will sit still, but if it's on any kind of a hill, you need that parking brake. That doesn't work. Trying to give you a better shot of this mechanism, the way this whole lever works. It's kind of sticky, and it doesn't have enough places to grease and lube it. There are a set of struts there to hold up the cab. They don't work when it's this cold out. They do work though in summertime. So luckily they have that doohickey right here. Keep you from getting smushed. So moving to the back of this gym, we got a big old ka-chunk door. And it reveals glory. Actually, this thing comes up too. Let me just quickly do that. So immediately in front of you is the radiator and hydraulic cooler and the batteries. This particular one is a 24-volt system. You'll probably notice this odd-looking coolant recovery bottle. Just like the tractor, they had one of those systems that constantly loses coolant. And to make it worse, the cap rotted out, and my old man just found one lying on his workbench and slapped it on, because one radiator cap's as good as another, right? So I think this thing's been overheated a few times. Anyway, when I brought it up here, I found out that this thing wasn't actually sealing, so I threw an O-ring in the bottom that's giving it enough pressure to seal. Rigged this doohickey up, and it's working. It's actually expanding and then bringing it back in. So another hokey Chinese coolant bottle situation. Common feature on skid steers like this is radiators that swing away so that you can access everything in the engine compartment. This does not. It's solidly bolted in, so you just work inside it. So this thing is, I'm going to try not to butcher this, but I'm probably going to do it anyway. Zhejiang Xinchai. That's the company that makes this thing. It's a A498 model engine. It doesn't give you much on this tag right there. Kind of unhelpful, but it's a 4-cylinder naturally aspirated diesel. This is that grid heater that I was talking about. This sucker's just finished. I think I have one on the way though. I think I have one. The 12-volt version was not too hard to find, but the 24-volt version, that one was a little tougher to get. So I did a crap load of work on this thing when I brought it up this year, and it sure needed it, because the only thing worse than poorly made Chinese equipment is not maintaining it. You gotta remember, guys, this 2007 is like the heyday of the crappiest of crappy Chinese crap. This is when Chinese stuff got its reputation for being crap. Loose bolts and Swiss cheese metal and the whole works. This is from that era. They had brass nuts holding on this muffler. I'm not shitting you. I had to find those. And of course they were some bizarre thread. It was like a M10 by 1. So, good luck finding that at Home Depot. But yeah, brass nuts. They just constantly fell off. And then this thing was, well, not that the muffler does a lot, but it's louder. The breather, I don't know if I'll be able to show you much on that. It has sort of a plastic tube right there that it breathes out of, and that plastic tube, I noticed when I got it up here, was melted to the block, so it was melted solid, and that's not great for crankcase pressure. So she's got oil leaks. That's what happens when you don't have a proper breather system, is your oil seals blow out. So the front main seal and the oil pan seal leak like crazy. And I was running this the other day and I noticed out of that pipe it was dripping bad. So I'm not really sure what that means. I mean, I know what it's supposed to mean. It means the rings are shot, but then it stopped doing it. So I don't know. And this thing's full of black magic or something. I adjusted the valves. They were kind of out of adjustment, but not too bad. I was surprised when I got that valve cover off. Didn't look as crappy and hokey as I was expecting. It looked like somebody put some care into it. All the radiator hoses were shot. I mean, you've never seen such garbage in your life. Again, this is the era of Swiss cheese metal, bolts that weren't tight, and rubber that rotted right out. The fuel lines, I've had to replace all of them because they just rotted and started leaking. The radiator hoses, they were just garbage. They were all leaking, especially the one right here. Now, yes, this is embarrassing to look at, but it was the best option. I couldn't get a hold of the company that made this friggin' engine. I needed to buy that pipe. It's like a weird squiggly kind of pipe, and it was pissing cooling all over that alternator. Not a great setup. So I tried getting it off them. I couldn't get it off them, so I ended up rigging this up with some 90-degree hydraulic fittings and some heater hose. I mean, it is not pretty, but it's holding coolant in, and the other hose wasn't. So I replaced the lower rad hose too. Pull the thermostat out, it works actually, so somebody did a good job on that. The belt, I've long since replaced that blew years ago. So right here is your injector pump, and it seems that this was kind of a transition time where they were going from like an internal oil system to being fed by the engine. So these things are oiled, but this version uses engine oil, and that's really good for it when you never change the oil. So going back to my old man with his maintenance, he claims he did an oil change on this once, and he didn't replace the filter. So I finally did an oil change, and this is, guys, this is like the best part of this whole machine, is the oil change. I'll just show you right here is the dipstick, and that red dealy, where is it? Where is it? Come on, you're in here. Oil filter. And of course that friggin' oil filter, good luck finding. Yeah, I had to spend some time trying to cross-reference numbers to figure that puppy out, and even then it was like 40 bucks. Yikes. I might need to get a light for this, because this is like the best part of the entire machine. Just give me a second here. Alright, do you see it? Let me zoom in here. Now do you see it? That's the drain plug. And it is smashed right into that frame that the engine's mounted on. I don't know how my dad did the oil change on this that he claims he did. My gut says I just did the first oil change this has ever had. There was sludge inside the oil filter, and that's, I guess, not a good sign. So, That was the oil feeding the injector pump. And now I hear a funny noise when I'm running this for a while coming from this area. Oh well. So the lift pump, I guess, is mechanical, or at least I'm assuming this is part of the lift pump. It's there's a manual pump right here, which comes in handy when your fuel gauge doesn't work, because somebody's going to run it out of fuel. Fuel filter back there that I changed. Both tanks have sort of the same situation where, oh man, can I get in there? There it is. So that whole thing on bolts, and there's sort of a sieve filter, a screen basically, and I replaced it on the hydraulic side. So it's kind of nice to have that. That big sucker right there is, I guess, the return filter. It's a hydraulic filter. I'm not really sure how all this goes together. You can also see, as far as hydraulic lines and stuff, like fit and fitment. And yeah, they kind of just made it all fit. So there's lots of hoses down inside there that are rubbing up on things too. That will probably blow if I don't end up doing something about it. And if you're wondering how I did the oil change, when the drain bolt smashed into the frame, I used a vacuum brake bleeder. I stuffed a rubber hose all the way down into that dipstick tube into the crankcase, and I sucked all the oil out. So it's not ideal. No comment. The engine is retained with these cradles. It's basically a piece of flat bar, and you can see in there where the gussets are, there's a bolt that bolts it down to the frame of the loader. And so there's one with that grabs each side of the engine front and back. And there should be bolts there. The mount on the opposite corner of this engine is also missing all its bolts. I got no explanation for that one. It also has that big shut-off switch, which is absolutely awesome. It's handy to have on heavy equipment, but it's broken too. That tab broke off. If you're at all familiar with Chinese equipment of this era, these welds are going to look suspiciously good. And you'd be right to be suspicious. What is going on here? You see this little bit of white showing through? It's all over the machine. Scooped on suspiciously thick. So this entire machine is coated with some kind of a Bondo-like substance. I'm not shitting you guys. This thing has some sort of body filler all over it. That's how they smooth this out. I'm almost scared to find out what the welds actually look like underneath that. I mean, that's a choice. When you'd rather slap some kind of filler all over the machine than make sure your welds look good. That's a heck of a choice. Well, I think the time has come to fire this baby up. So, first you make sure that your shut-off lever is up. Give it a wee touch of throttle. And normally I do this with my hands kind of ready to grab the levers, but we're just gonna have some excitement. Oh, she almost went. Give her a touch more. There we go. See, I got a mark with a key. There we go. And now the hour meter works. Oh, she's moving. We are very slowly moving backward. because there's no proper brake, it's not really safe to get out of this machine while it's running, but I guess that's what you do when you want to be a YouTube star. Just make sure you don't bump any levers as you're getting in, so it's good. It teaches you to be careful. And then to shut it off, there you go. And then don't forget to turn the key off. You know what? It's better to no skid steer. So that is the glorious mediocrity that is the Tianluo JC60 Super Monkey. Hope you guys love it. Well, I got a pile of gravel to move, so why don't I just set this camera up for some bonus footage and you can see the Super Monkey at work.